A lot of weather pattern changes are coming to the United States over the course of the next 10 days as a ridge moves from west to east and will eventually fill in the pattern, just like you saw in the thumbnail. But first, we got a lot of storminess for millions of people, and I'll track that out with additional details on the entire weather pattern, including the tropics, in this video. Stick around.
One Nation Weather.
As always, I appreciate you being here with me at One Nation Weather. The model maps that I use throughout my videos are always from WeatherBell, so make sure you check out their free trial link down there in the description to get some of those same maps. Also, if you're new to my channel, as always, you can hit that subscribe button so you never miss a forecast in the future. Remember, whether you're a new or existing subscriber, you can always check that notification bell and make sure those notifications are turned on so you never miss exactly when I post. Here we go. Let's take a look at future radar with the European model to see what we've got going on over the next 7 to 10 days, as we always start out the videos with. What I'm circling on screen right now as we go towards our Saturday, June 8th of 2024. In the early to mid part of the afternoon, we're going to be watching some of these showers and thunderstorms that will have been ongoing from late Friday evening here as I film the video, through our early Saturday morning, moving through especially parts of Missouri, and then eventually here at this point, entering some parts of Illinois, Indiana, western Kentucky as well. Most of these sub-severe, but that is attached to a piece of upper level energy they're sitting in parts of southeastern Canada. That same piece of energy is responsible for what's going to fire back on up with a cold front later in the day Saturday, heading at what we are seeing right here into early Sunday morning as well. So if you're coming out of parts of the central high plains, and especially parts of southern Nebraska into Kansas, northern Oklahoma, even all the way on over there towards parts of western Tennessee, there will be some thunderstorm development late Saturday heading in early Sunday. Some of this will have the potential to be severe as well, especially if you go from Missouri westbound, Kansas and the Oklahoma region. That could be where we start to see some of these storms get a little more dicey with wind, hail, and maybe even an isolated tornado threat. As we go towards the end of our Sunday here, we'll get another round of some showers and storms. Some of these will be left over from early on Sunday. Some of these will begin to fire on up and refire on the front end of those as well, as this front slowly sags southward while weakening. Really from the Appalachian mountain chain all the way and over there towards parts of the high plains there in Texas and western Oklahoma. We're going to be fair game for some isolated to scattered showers and thunderstorms Sunday. We'll also be watching some of this activity, more than likely based on this model and others, developing on the northern end of a ridge, bringing heat to the southwest. You can see in the Pacific Northwest and parts of the Mountain West, that's where some of these showers and storms will fire up late on our Sunday as well. And then here as we go towards our Monday, a new round of showers and thunderstorms, and this is when we begin to turn towards a little bit more of a transitional and interesting active pattern as we head towards next week. Notice we've got a lot of showers and thunderstorms pushing out of the Rockies and the Front Range there into the high plains, the western parts of Texas, Oklahoma, even I think Kansas, Nebraska, and especially on up there into the Dakotas. Fair game for some showers and thunderstorms late on Monday. Some of these will have the potential to be severe. It's a little uncertain where that is right now. I think we could have some local pockets on up there in the Dakotas and then back down in Texas and Oklahoma that have the highest chance, not only on Monday, but then again in Tuesday down there in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, surrounding areas, as well as on up there in the upper Midwest Tuesday as the northern part of this low pressure system that's fueling this setup in the early part of the week heads east. Now again, this is all riding over the ridge that's in the southwestern United States. That's going to be important when we talk about some stuff in a moment. You can definitely see Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin also getting in on some showers and storms. That could happen not only Tuesday, but even as we go in towards Wednesday as well. It's going to be a little bit active on up there over the north central United States and into the Great Lakes. Here we go down over the southeast as well. I don't want to rule out some of these storms moving out of parts of Oklahoma and Texas Wednesday, heading towards the Gulf Coast and combining with some of this moisture that's going to be sitting around Florida, some of these Gulf Coast regions and the southeastern coast of the United States. I think if it's not already getting going by Wednesday and Thursday, we will see this tropical-induced activity of precipitation here over a lot of the southeastern states, and especially Florida, in all corners of Florida, and especially the southern part. By the time we head towards late Thursday, heading towards Friday, we're really going to see a lot of this precipitation ramp up on this region. The GFS has this filling into more areas and a little bit faster. You'll see that a little later in the video when we talk tropics, so that's something to keep in mind. But for now, let's take a look at the mid-level pattern. Now, I don't want you to focus on those weird numbers at the bottom of the screen. I want you to focus on the blues and the oranges and the reds. Blues, like what you're seeing here in the northeastern United States as we go towards our Sunday, June 9th of 2024 in the afternoon, indicate we've got a low pressure system. It's probably going to be some cloudiness over this region, but also with that cold front that it's going to be draping over the south central United States. This is just where the centers of different parts of the low pressures and high pressures will be, because in the oranges, like what I'm circling now, that's what you've got high pressure in place. That's exactly what's happening here in Idaho, Montana, surrounding areas of the Mountain West as we go towards late Sunday. Although especially on the southern end of that ridge that you see there, that's where we're going to be seeing a lot of that heat develop in California, Nevada, and Arizona. Remember that we will see some precipitation exiting parts of the Mountain West Monday. Heading into Tuesday, we'll see a lot of this push into the central United States. With this little upper level piece of energy, it's also going to have some surface characteristics as well over parts of North Dakota, parts of Minnesota, and the south central areas of Canada. This is, again, these areas I'm hashing out. This is where we're going to see some of those showers and thunderstorms develop, I think, as we go through our Tuesday, especially in those focal zones of Oklahoma and Texas, and then back on up there, heading out of the north central and into the upper Midwest regions of the United States. The blues are where we've got low pressures. The oranges and reds are where we've got high pressures. Keep that in mind. And I think this is really noticeable, and the mid-level pattern helps us take things out in terms of the picture here as we head towards our Wednesday and into our Thursday. Look at this down here for parts of Louisiana, southern Mississippi, on down into the northeastern Gulf Coast, as well as Florida. That's where we've got some of those, whites in the middle of some of those oranges. That's indicating that we've got a little spot where there's some lower pressure in comparison to the rest of the higher pressure surrounding. That's why it's going to be active close to the Gulf Coast as we head throughout the, especially back half of the week. Also up here where we've got the blues meeting the oranges in the north central United States heading into the northeast. That's where we're going to begin to see the ridge moving out of the mountain west on Thursday, interacting with some of that low pressure heading in through southern Canada. This ridge, again, and that's the one that I'm talking about, it's going to be feeling those storms along that track I just showed you there, especially heading out of the Dakotas all the way and over there to the northeastern United States, I think, really, as we go throughout a lot of this week because of that setup. Then finally, once we get that low out of the way at the end of the week, and multiple of those have been moving through over the course of the week over the north central United States, this area I just circled fills in with that ridging, that much warmer than average air for a lot of places, if that hasn't already hit in the eastern United States. And what's interesting is this could create some more interaction over the central United States with low pressure that's now to the west of the ridge instead of to the east of the ridge as we head towards Monday, June 17th of 2024. And again, this is an ensemble system. It's a collection of models averaged out to form one final product here. It's not going to be perfect, but it's certainly something to look at. And you can now look at this on the precipitation ensembles here. So again, this is an average of some different models, showing you that as we head towards late Monday afternoon, not a surprise, this is what I talked about a little earlier. Showers and thunderstorms are expected to fire up from at least the Dakotas all the way back down here through the high plains into parts of western Texas. There will probably, again, notice where we've got in New Mexico and Texas, we've got a cluster of some storms. I think those could be a little bit locally severe. Same goes on up there and through parts of the Dakotas. Probably not extremely huge tornado threats out of any of this activity next week, but we'll keep an eye on it. There could at least be some isolated tornadoes at times. Notice those deeper grays and some of those greens, indicating, a quarter to a half an inch of precip being averaged out by these models and forming that ensemble system up there Tuesday over parts of the upper Midwest. That shows that there's a local pocket of heavier storms up there, more than likely, as we head through Tuesday. Same goes back here over Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. I think we'll have to watch some of those deeper greens for not only the flooding potential that could come out of that heavy rain, but also the potential for some severe storms in especially Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, a lot of the south central United States at some point between late Monday, going through especially Tuesday and Wednesday, and then even towards early Thursday. Now, a lot of that moisture combining with tropical moisture there close to the Gulf Coast by the time we head towards Thursday. The GFS model is on board with a lot of this clashing in this area as early as late Tuesday heading into Wednesday, but even if you're not a GFS model lover, that's why we're going with the Euro here, because it's a little more conservative with this precipitation. It gets it really ramping up over Florida and surrounding areas in the Gulf Coast by Thursday, so expect a lot of precip there. And then also notice this is where over some of that warmer air and a little bit of that drier air that we're going to start to filter in into parts of the central United States on Thursday, we're going to notice some of those showers and storms from Nebraska all the way on over to Maine, more than likely, and at least some isolated pockets here, especially in Iowa, Minnesota, and then over there in the Great Lakes. It looks like that's where we're going to see some of this prominence of those showers and storms on our Thursday. And then by the time we even head towards the upcoming weekend, look where things continue to be active. Down there close to the Gulf Coast, and then in this area I circled over the north central United States. It is pretty typical for severe weather season to shift a little bit further north as we head into the summer, though. And the heat does too as well. So let's talk about this here and do a breakdown of what we just discussed, looking at the surface with our daily high temperatures here. As we go towards our Saturday, June 8th of 2024, if you're south of this line, you're probably at least in the 80s, unless you're in some of those higher elevations and coastal areas of the west, of course. Here we go. Looking at some of these spots, you can see, first of all, that it's pretty warm up here in parts of the Great Lakes, but it is not as warm as it could be, and it should be for this time of the year. Indiana, into parts of southeast Michigan, Detroit area, and on over into Ohio as well, some mid to upper 70s Saturday. Meanwhile, and up here, just a little bit further northwest of that, and a lot of the rest of Michigan and into Wisconsin, some 60s and low 70s, quite cool up there. Look at this down here in Oklahoma and Texas, though, not beating the heat with plenty of 90-degree readings. West Texas and western Oklahoma with a lot of 100-degree readings. The same goes with some of these temperatures closer to the Mexico border there in southeast California, southern Nevada. and of course down there in southwestern Arizona. And then we've also, of course, got a lot more 80s over a lot of some of the lower elevations in the west. By the way, you see those boxes I just circled in Florida on Saturday. That's where it's going to be in the 90s and breaking some record highs there. As we go towards Sunday, notice the cold front sinking southward here. We've got that near-term cold front. That's not what I've been focusing on much in this video so far, but all these spots up here close to the U.S.-Canadian border, up there from North Dakota all the way to Maine, we're going to see a lot of spots touching that border in the 60s. We might even have a few upper 50s for most of the day in some of these spots. Meanwhile, we're not breaking the 100-degree mark and getting rid of it, I should say, down there in parts of southwest Nevada, southwest Arizona, a lot of Texas as well. Even notice there at Salt Lake City, Utah, getting on up into the 90s as we head towards our Sunday afternoon. That's crazy. Look at this, though. Texas, we get a dent in some of that heat as we head towards our Monday, June 10th of 2024. Again, this is that near-term cooldown I've talked about in previous videos, bringing a lot of those 70s, which are abnormal for this time of the year, down into parts of Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, northern Arkansas. Little Rock's going to be in the low to mid-80s probably, but close to some of those 70s if you go on the north side of town Monday. Look at that, still very nice over the Great Lakes region with a lot of mild 70s, low humidity again, and a lot of these spots cooling down as well on Monday. Problem is, if you go down here closer to the Gulf Coast, the Mexico borders, this is where you're going to have a lot of problems with continued and prolonged heat with lots of 80s and 90s persisting, higher humidity as well. Once we go towards Tuesday, we begin to notice more areas other than the west starting to fill back in with some heat. Central Plains, we're starting to get some 80s filling in where I just circled, but again, look at the west. It's really expanding out of there too. Montana, even heading into the Dakotas, we're seeing some low to mid-80s there. Still down here close to the U.S.-Mexico border, it is just scorching with 100-degree readings plus. Any of those spots you see some of those fuchsias within those grays down there closer to the Mexico border, that's where we're seeing some 110-plus degree numbers starting to fill on in. Here we go towards our Wednesday, June 12th of 2024, and look at the warmth. Up here in the Great Lakes, we're starting to really warm on up. We're going to lose some of that lower humidity. It's going to start to get hotter with some low to mid-80s in a lot of spots there. Detroit still maybe hanging on to some upper 70s at this point. Notice the ridging is starting to exit the west and move at least through central parts of the west and into the plains, as we've got in this area I circled on screen just now. Some upper 80s and low 90s over the north and central plains. Here we go down here, Texas, a lot of the southeast as well. Plenty of upper 80s, plenty of 90s to go around. And again, if you're in the grays on screen, you know, it's going to be really hot and dangerously hot for a lot of spots. Towards Thursday, I think this is a day where we've got a little bit of precursor heat. I think it's going to get even worse for a lot of the eastern United States as we head towards some point at the end of next weekend, heading towards the early part of the following week. So sometime after the 15th, 16th, and into the 17th. But even before that, we've got this brief day on Thursday where I think before a little quick front knocks things back, we'll have a lot of these upper 80s and low 90s pushing things northward towards parts of Illinois before they get knocked on back out of the Midwest, out of the Ohio Valley, out of the North Central Plains briefly, from what I'm seeing anyway, later down the line. So we'll keep an eye on that. For now, though, let's also take a look at the tropics because things are about to get really interesting over parts of Florida, the Gulf Coast of the United States, and of course this is all coming out of the Gulf of Mexico and Caribbean. Now, the good news is that there's no tropical activity expected from the National Hurricane Center based on this graphic over the next 7 days. So as I film this on your June 7th through the 14th of June, we're not expected to see any sort of tropical depression or tropical storm in the Atlantic Basin anywhere across any of these oceanic areas you're seeing on screen right now. But looking at the GFS ensembles, again, a collection of models averaged out here to show what's going on. Notice how it shows a lot of that precipitation getting going not only over Florida, but over a lot of the far eastern shores of the United States by the time we head towards Tuesday heading into Wednesday. This is something the European model doesn't show quite as much of, but you can definitely see why that Florida rainfall is getting unstalled out, because look all the way on up there in the northeastern Atlantic, we've got high pressure that's preventing a stalled front from moving, and the southern end of that front's just going to sit over Florida. Of course, you've got the Gulf moisture to tap into with the southerly flow there. Definitely by the time we get towards Thursday and Friday, a lot of the southern Gulf Coast, a lot of Florida getting drenched by rainfall. And this pattern could cause significant flooding, and I'm talking significant flooding over a lot of Florida down the line, even as we head towards parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and the Carolinas. Some of these spots, even East Texas, we'll have to watch some of these precipitation areas through at least the middle to even maybe the back half of June with time. As, you know, even if we don't get a tropical storm, we're going to be watching a lot of heavy rainfall. In fact, there's no doubt that rainfall is the main concern over at least the next 7 days and probably beyond here based on what we just looked at. Let's use the Weather Prediction Center right here in America's graphics to see what Florida's going to be getting in rainfall, at least through Tuesday, the central and southern parts of the state down there, at least picking up a half an inch of rain. But I think the real flood threats are going to get going starting late Tuesday, heading into Wednesday and beyond. Not to say we couldn't see flooding before this, but look at the totals of rain from now all the way through Wednesday, June 12th. This is just a 5-day span from when I filmed this video, and we're looking at 2 to 4 inch totals over a lot of Florida. This is pretty normal. There's a lot of heavy rains that do hit Florida with time, but by the time we head towards Friday, June 14th, this is as far as the Weather Prediction Center's graphics go out when I film this. Some spots seeing 6 to 8 inches down there in south central Florida from Cape Coral over to the east and Miami areas, points south down there to the Keys. This is abnormal for sure. A lot of the rest of Florida and some spots on the Gulf Coast 2 to 4 inches plus. A lot of flooding to watch down the line. A lot more to watch in the weather world, so subscribe to stay tuned here at One Nation Weather. That's it for this video. Hope everybody has a great start to the weekend.
One Nation Weather.